Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery. Screwed it up already. Welcome back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me is my good brother here in the temple, the professional provert, the man behind Sexy Sundays, and our resident man with the probing questions, good brother Nephenor.
And the current holder of the chair of Xenatrix of Zidari, I am now taking his position.
Is this like some invasion angle, like we're doing the BWO or something?
Yes, something like that. I'm taking his throne. He is going to have to sit at my feet for now. When he can challenge me to take it back, he can have it.
Yeah, you realize he's just gonna sit on you and just sit there until you pass out.
I think that if I were to sit on him, he would be passing out first.
At the very least, give me a week's notice so I can book a match.
And make sure that you have lots of popcorn handy.
Well, yeah, maybe I'll see if I can call up Wally the beer guy.
Hey, there we go.
If you don't get don't know who Wally the Beer Man is, you're not from Minnesota.
Well, that definitely qualifies as probably a lot of us.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at Oilers games there's somebody close who's always there, and everybody knows him.
Yeah, probably.
It's just I used to go to the Metrodome a lot for Twins games because the family had season tickets, and Wally was there every single time.
In my case, the last time I went to an Oilers game, Gretzky was still a part of the team, so that tells you how long it's been.
Yeah, though it could be worse. You could have seen him when he was in a Blues uniform.
Oof.
But seeing that would be as likely as, I don't know, seeing Brett Hull sober.
Yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, the man has alcohol running through his veins.
No, he has an alcohol system, and sometimes there's blood introduced into it.
Fair. And also just as likely as, I don't know, Brian Burke liking anything.
Or Don Cherry not blowing a gasket.
At least when Cherry does it, it's funny.
And usually topical and relevant.
Yeah. But I know there's the meme about if you get two Canadians in a room that eventually the conversation will turn to hockey. I feel like Minnesotans should be in that conversation as well.
Yeah, probably should, but that's okay. That's why we accept you as one of us.
Yeah. Along with like everyone else having a mutual hatred of everything in Toronto.
Yeah, and I live there, so I can say that with extra precision.
Oh, every Canadian guest I've ever had has said they hate Toronto. And I think it.
Although I will say
Mhm.
they did have one of the best game stores that I've ever been to.
Yeah. Uh, I will. I will. I will say at the very least, the only the only city that's gotten proper representation in games is Vancouver, and that's mainly because of the whole ice rink and Tony Hawk. Yes, I'm being very specific with that.
Yeah, that is true. Although, didn't I thought there was also a White Wolf supplement that hit Vancouver once too?
Could have been, and it's not that hard to write a city by night book. Hell, I've done it. I did Twin Cities, but I did a Twin Cities by Night book, which unfortunately I won't be able to share with any of you because I lost the file for that years ago. I just thought it.
Ah,
I wanted to depict the modern knights with the Twin Cities with the two factions on both sides of the Mississippi, because keep in mind the question of which of the Twin Cities is the better one back in the day was enough to start a fight. It didn't help that around that time I was watching Gangs of New York. And knowing the history of my state and watching that movie, I started putting two and two together. As far as who was trying to instigate the fight, um, two different Brujas, and the Ventrue manipulating the whole thing.
and I was right. Dark Alliance Vancouver, one of the books that was put out for Werewolf.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, especially since we know who the true rulers of Canada are. The Moose.
Actually, no, it's the Goose.
Fair? They were almost extinct, and since they recovered, they've made it everybody else's problem. But this time around, we are covering a bit of a one-shot. We'll return to Flux Fantasy next week, but this time around, I wanted to cover a starter set from old friend Amit Moshe, who is doing pretty well these days. He's just crazy busy, which is why I haven't been able to have him on for quite a while. And I knew I wanted to cover one of the games in the Myst engine, as it's been known. But it was a three-way tie between whether we would cover the original City of Myst, the recently fully released Cyberpunk variant, Tokyo Otherscape, or the upcoming fantasy variant, Legend in the Mist. And after giving it some thought and doing a coin toss, I decided to leave it up to the original. Especially since the one of them is just a quick start right now, and the subject matter might change. And the other one is it only just now, like in the last couple weeks, fully released to the public. For the longest time, I was going to cover it, but then a update would come and I'd have to rewrite what I was going to write about it. And so I just threw up my hands and was like, I'm not touching this until it's 1.0 out, because every time I think I'm done, some new update comes and I've got to throw out my script.
Well, that solves the problem of having a three-sided coin.
I was told I can't use non-Euclidean dice. They didn't say anything about non-Euclidean coins.
Okay, damn it, you and your technicalities.
Believe it or not, I never studied law.
Well, actually, if you really get down to it, every coin is three-sided. It's got the heads, tails, and the side.
You are technically correct. The best
kind of correct.
And, well, Kane did have that whole thing of a coin landing on its edge in Soul Reaver 2, so precedent. But for this, we are covering the starter set, because covering the full book would be a bit excessive for a one-shot, and I'd rather not repeat the Yggdrasil incident. I do love what Mario had to say here. To quote a friend from the service, if I had to choose between Toronto for a day and full deployment to the Middle East, I'll take the deployment every single time.
I can't say I blame you.
I've heard the same thing. I've heard the same thing about whether or not somebody would want to either spend a weekend in Toronto or spend a weekend with the Canadian Rangers way up north.
Hey, the Rangers are much more fun anyway.
Well, yeah, yeah. And I found out they're still using those old Mad Minute rifles. Oh, they were until like a decade ago.
Hey, we're also the military that when we give our military training on how to repair helicopters, it also certifies them to work on antiques.
But now, the best way for me to describe City of Mist is modern mythology. In the same way that back in the 90s there were a lot of TV shows that were doing this idea of those old myths and legends from the good old days are still around, just in different forms. This is where you get your Buffy verses and the like. And this is leaning into that, but doing it far more directly, as in the deities of old are still around. Oh, it's just that they are hidden in plain sight. Now, like I said, we're covering the rule set part of the starter box set, which for a starter set is actually, you can actually get that for pretty cheap these days. So I think on the site the starter box set only costs like $30, which for a starter box set, that's cheap.
Yeah, it's always nice to have a low barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm. I talked about how the starter box set for the FF14 TTRPG was a bit much for what it's presenting, and to make sure I wasn't talking out of my ass, I ended up looking at a bunch of starter sets to see what they end up costing. Obviously, the cheapest is the ones from the most litigious role-playing game, which are like $20, but it is a case of you get what you pay for. I'll put it that way. But it opens up with, "Welcome to the City of Legends Made Flesh. In a corrupt and haunted metropolis, individuals from all walks of life become gateways to mythical powers from beyond, torn between their personal lives and the legend growing within them." And for the next parts, I'll let you take on the description that's on page 7.
All right. In the shadows of the shiny skyscrapers and derelict residential blocks, ancient stories and urban legends assume physical form, choosing mortal beings as their gateway to this world. But the mist, a mystical veil known only to a select few, prevents the unwitting denizens of the city from ever acknowledging the miracles they witness daily, hiding their true nature from one another. Distracted by their everyday hopes and fears, the people on the streets remain oblivious to the clash of mystical forces that drive and control the very life of the city. You were an ordinary person until the seed of the legendary awoke within you. Now you seek answers to questions about your powers, but the truth always seems to elude you. Yet at the same time, you still want what every human being wants: love, money, power, peace of mind. Together with your ragtag crew of gifted individuals, you work to reveal the powers operating in the dark, smoky alleys of the city, just as those very powers seek you out for what you are. You will hit the streets in search of the strange cases, loose ends, and unsolved mysteries that will lead you to the truth, inevitably clashing with the other legends in mortal form, agents of the powers beyond the mist. Be warned, the truth is as dangerous as the forces that hide it. Only when you find yourself sacrificing that which is dearest to you will you truly learn the answer to the ultimate question: who am I? But will it be worth it?
Who am I? I'm Jean Valjean. Okay.
I am Iron Man!
But
I couldn't resist that.
now obviously City of Mist leans heavily into film noir and neo noir. the protagonists are referred to as gateways, ordinary people who become the living embodiment of a legend, their mythos. And gateway and mythos and the balance between those two is a key component of the game. Now,
Yeah, I do love the fact that they have that whole dichotomy of you have to fight with your mythos side and your regular side.
mhm. Now it does say that City of Mist is based on the Apocalypse engine, but if I'm being honest,
It doesn't show it.
it is based on that as much as that recent Cult game was based on the Apocalypse engine. Like it's there, but it's the skeleton of it.
I wouldn't even call it the skeleton because, I mean, if you look at something like Cult, which is definitely a lot closer to the Apocalypse engine base, it has nothing in common with that.
Mm-hmm.
Except maybe some of the themes behind it, but that's about it.
Yeah, and truth be told, it's those kind of things with something like the Apocalypse engine that are going to hold my interest rather than just a slight variation with slightly different playbooks. The latter is a case of I sleep. When you're taking the framework and doing something wholly unique with it, instead of just a reskin, then I wake up and it's real shit.
Damn straight. I always like something that's new and unique. However, this does lead into my first rant.
Mm-hmm.
And it does talk about this. It says here, of course, with every game, you need, of course, a game master. But they call this the Master of Ceremonies. Now, that is shortened to MC. For those of us who are in the writing community and who deal with role playing, C tends to be the short form for character, which is in writing, you will find it as MC, main character. So when I see MC constantly in the book, I keep thinking main character. And I really don't like a tendency of games when they have a perfectly serviceable term, game master, and they want to put their own unique spin on it. It's like, come on, just use game master, please. It's fine.
Yeah.
I understand you want flavor in your game, but sometimes you don't need it.
I remember the Spanish version of Anima at one point was tooling around with calling the GM the director, which, well, the problem is you can't really shorten that. But at the very least, a name like that is a little bit more on point.
And when I make this complaint, I fully realize that this also affects my favorite game, which is Call of Cthulhu, for its Keeper of Arcane Lore, which I absolutely hate. I refuse to use that term.
I will. A lot of games will do it, and I will just default to Game Master largely for the same reason why I defaulted to the term graphic novel as a catch-all for, well, graphic novels, manga, manhwa, and manhwa.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just that when I was reading through this, I kept tripping myself up when I kept saying MC. I'm like, no, they mean Master of Ceremonies. They mean GM.
Mm-hmm. And just because it's the norm for PBTA doesn't mean I'm not gonna call that out. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that's the norm in other games that I will beat with a stick at every opportunity I can. But obviously within the rule set we're gonna have the basic rules. We have a few pre-gens, which obviously we're not getting into the pre-gens for this. A sample case called V's for going viral, a more advanced case called Demons and Cross End. Both of which we're not going to get into those modules because of the policy that I have when it comes to modules, adventures, or the like. I don't like covering them because in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking of the off chance that somebody is going to watch one of my streams and get spoiled on a given adventure.
Yeah, that's always a thing to worry about. And also, it's nice to have the adventure guy or the adventure reviews as their own separate thing so that way you can say, hey, I like this game. Let's see if I want to learn more about it as a GM or as a player, and you can decide which direction you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, after that, they get into the setting, Lestrange's Guide to the City, and I will note I do love the very comic book visual design that the book has throughout, and the whole series has throughout. They use a consistent set of artists.
Yeah, I love that. That is just, it gives it a lot more flair to the book.
Mm-hmm. And the setting part, the first thing they go into is the whole concept of the mythos, and in particularly the relationship with the mythos and the mist. The mist is basically the veil that prevents normal people from knowing about the true nature of the area they're in.
For those who are familiar with Mage the Ascension, it's kind of like Paradox.
Mm-hmm. And after the first three things that it goes is who am I, what do I want, and who is after me. The what do I want part is where it ties into the concept of identity, as well as the mystery that you're compelled to follow. The answer to who is after me is, well, the fact that there are other gateways who have their own mythos that they're associated with, and one way or another, you're gonna run into them no matter what. It's not far removed from how in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, stand users are naturally drawn to each other.
And I do like the fact that it does say there in that section at the end, not all gateways pose a threat, though. The city has enough shades of gray to accommodate a wide spectrum of motives, and you may find gateways who will be willing to help you out for their own reasons. And that is good. You have to remember, not everyone's going to be your enemy, but not everyone can be your friend either.
Mm-hmm. After that, it goes into crews and cases. Crews are the game's name for essentially the party. And a case is exactly what it sounds like.
Kind of like your adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And in this situation, I don't mind them playing with the terms because this is actually something that makes sense for the game.
Yeah, it's doubling down on that whole detective style of film noir.
Yeah, and it works because it actually makes sense. You're gonna a modern setting. It's not a party; it's your crew. You hang with your crew.
And after that, they have a few examples of types of crews. The first is the pros, which when you need something done, you call the professionals. Then there's masked vigilante investigations, which is exactly what it sounds like. Although, if somebody wanted to lean into that route, I'd tell them go study pulp comics or study street level heroes.
Don't study Batman.
No, though studying the Question would be closer to the mark.
Or the Shadow, the original Shadow.
The original Shadow, maybe the Phantom, depends on which books you're dealing with. But the Phantom's more of an adventure serial than a mystery kind of thing.
Yeah, that's why I like the old Shadow radio plays. Those were good stuff.
Mm-hmm. But you have Dabblers of the Mist, which it is a case of people who've stumbled into something they shouldn't. And Conspiracy Busters, which is exactly what it sounds like.
They ain't afraid of no conspiracy?
Mm-hmm. See, then we have the Mist, which I already explained is that force that keeps people from knowing how dangerous things are. We already mentioned Paradox, but I'd also say the protocols that the Men in Black have to follow aren't too far removed from it.
That's true too. The one thing that I do like about is how they talk that the sleepers can actually awaken, see things as they are, and then go right back to sleep, which is something that I was not expecting. I always expect games to have it once you're awake, you're always awake. And This one actually provides for the concept of, you know what? I'm going back to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Ah. And with that said, there are the mist isn't some all-encompassing thing that's going to make things consequence free, because there's a sidebar about so I can do anything in the mist will clean up after me, and not exactly. And in fact, they say deep in their hearts, sleepers know what they saw, but they just can't bring themselves to acknowledge it. They get distracted, make up excuses, or simply forget.
Yeah,
But
that's a lot like Paradox and oh god, I can't remember what the hell they called it in Werewolf when they see a werewolf changing. It's the concept of you know what happened, but you just refuse to admit it.
mhm. I suppose it could also bring up the rules of the masquerade.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that was one thing. There's a lot of commonality between the White Wolf games in that they all had something that prevented the normal people from actually understanding it. And
Mhm.
heck, there was even a fan-made Highlander that had the same thing going on.
Are you talking about Highlander the Gathering?
Yeah, yeah. The Highlander White Wolf net version, which was actually not bad.
Mhm. But there's three pillars when it comes to the rules of the Mist. The Mist hides legendary powers, not their consequences. You never know who is watching. Exposing sleepers to Mythos powers may awaken them. And the Mist can bite back.
And sometimes it bite back hard.
Mm-hmm. When it says biting back, the one of the first things that comes to mind is to reference another White Wolf entry, the Sidereal Exalted's ability to mess around with fate in Exalted.
I was thinking more along the lines of oh god, I can't remember what his name was, but the one Paradox entity who bites back if you mess with time, and when he comes in and erases you from existence.
Yeah, which is a very good way to answer the question of if mages have this unlimited power, why don't they mess around with time travel?
Because there's somebody there who will fuck you over.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, most games that I know that do some sort of time travel have some sort of entity or some sort of force that you do not want to get on the bad side of if you decide to mess around with time travel.
Yeah, that's just one of those taboos that is probably there for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. But then you have the city, and there's very much the implication that the city is meant to be this metropolis, but for all intents and purposes, it is the city by night that you see in many of the World of Darkness games. It's not meant to be a defined city, but a series of bullet points that you can fill in with whatever city you want to use with.
And that's always a good thing when you leave it open so that you can bring it to your city or a nearby city or something else that players are familiar with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they do have a collection of locations, but you can interpret these in any way you like. You know, stuff like downtown. Every city's going to have a downtown.
And
The
every city's gonna have a blue collar slum.
Yeah, I mean, you've got that. You have the industrial zone. You're gonna have a lot of industrial bases in large cities, no matter what.
And then of course you always have the gentrified areas, so you
Mm-hmm.
know, you've got that too.
Yeah, but then it goes into the gateways, and they include 7 pre-gen gateways. And anytime they talk about things in bold, those are things that are going to be important. Uh, the gateways that are in the starter set are Salamander, who is described as a heartthrob, was a city water worker before he got connected with his mythos. Uh, the Excalibur, and we have Mitosis, Postmortem, Declan Lestrange, and Flicker. And each one of them has a set of terms that are in bold.
Oh, and
Essentially,
Kitesoon too.
oh right, I forgot forgot about Kitsune. The idea is what they were beforehand, what kind of mythos they bonded with, what the reason, and something that drives them. And then we get to the cinematics, and Anatomy of a Gateway, I will let you take on that front.
All right. Player characters in the City of Mist are made of 4 themes, each representing one of the character's major aspects. The themes are divided between mythos and logos, with mythos themes representing the mythical and supernatural aspects, and logos themes representing ordinary life, which your character knows, values, and loves. The number of mythos versus the number of logos themes that your character has says a lot about her. They determine her relationship with the legendary and the ordinary. Every mythos theme has a mystery in the form of a question, an attention track with 3 boxes, and a fade with 3 boxes. The mystery defines what your character wishes to discover about her mythos. The attention shows her growing familiarity with her mythos and how much her connection with it is evolving. When you mark attention 3 times on a mythos theme, you choose an improvement for that theme. Finally, when your character's mystery calls to her, but she ignores it, you mark a fade. If your character continues to ignore her mythos and marks the 3rd fade, you lose the theme and you must choose a new logos theme instead. Similarly, every logos theme has an identity in the form of a statement, an attention with 3 boxes, and a crack track with 3 boxes. An identity is something that your character believes about herself. The attention track shows how much your character invests in developing this aspect of her. When you mark 3 attention 3 times, you get a logos theme when you choose an improvement for that theme. When you mark crack on your character, the identity demands something of her, but she fails to deliver. If your character continues to ignore identity and marks the 3rd crack, you lose the theme and must choose a new mythos theme instead. And this is what I was talking about, the whole your regular life versus your mythos life, which is a really good way of doing it. You lose one, you gain the other. And then we'll get into this one. Finally, all themes have power tags. These tags both describe your character and power and the actions your character takes. They can describe qualities, abilities, gear, allies, or assets. Each theme also has 1 or more weakness tags, which impede your character's actions but also give you a chance to mark attention. During the game, you may receive additional temporary tags, which may be used as either power or weakness tags, or statuses, which represent conditions that affect your ability to act.
Mm-hmm. And after that, it goes into creating your own character, which a character in City of Mist has 4 themes divided between mythos and logos, so at least one of each. A mystery for each mythos theme, an identity for each logos theme, 3 power tags in each theme, 1 weakness tag in each theme. Optionally, in one theme, 1 additional power tag and 1 additional weakness tag. Make sure your tags aren't too broad or narrow. Create a good mix of both. And the full version has, of course, theme books. And after that, we have an example of a mythos and a logos. And this particular long card approach is used with all of the mythos and logos in the full book.
Yeah, I do kind of like this idea, because especially if you print stuff out like these, then you got it handy and you can quickly scan it easily.
Mm-hmm. I do think the physical, some of the physical sets on the City of Mist website has these printed out already in their own card stock.
Actually, it would be even better is if you printed them out with a card stock that's got a nice glossy coat on them, and then you could use like non-permanent markers.
Mm-hmm. But each of the mythos and logos have this pattern of theming as far as what's in it. And with some of them, these kind of things are left with some parts of it, it's left blank to fill in.
And I do like that they've got you've got 4 themes, and you can choose whether you want to go more mythos or more logos, depending on your character. So if you want them to be more grounded, you give them 3 logos. If you want them to be more magical and more extraordinary, you give them 3 mythos.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go 50-50.
Yep. Whoops. Oh. Misclicked and the thing jumped ahead. Sorry about that. But after that is how to play the game, starting with telling the story together, which is basically making clear that it's a form of group storytelling. And they even have a sidebar about what? No initiative roll?
Yeah, for storytelling games like this, don't need it.
Mm-hmm. But then we have taking actions, and I'll take this one. As the drama and mystery in your story unfold, you'll want your character to take actions and influence your story in various ways. Moves let you determine the outcome of your actions. All moves start with the words "when you," followed by a condition. Whenever your character takes an action in the story that matches the condition of a move, the move is triggered and you need to roll for the move and follow its description to determine the outcome. That's called making a move. Whenever you want to make a specific move, your character must take an action in the story that matches the condition of the move. So to make a move, you think about what you have to do, then you choose a move. The example moves that are given are investigate, convince, face danger, hit with all you've got, go toe-to-toe, change the game, sneak around, and take a risk. After that, you pick relevant tags to determine the power of your action. Scan your character playbook for tags relevant to this action. Count the number of power tags that help you carry out the action. Subtract the number of weakness tags that impede this action, if any. The GM can also choose to activate one or more of your weakness tags this way. The result is the power of your action. Factor in enhancing or impeding statuses. If you have any relevant status spectrum cards, add the tier of the highest enhancing status to your power, and subtract the tier of the highest impeding status from your power. Then roll 2d6 and add your power to the result. This is called roll plus power. Compare the total of the move as explained in the move sheet to determine the outcome. Different moves have different outcomes, such as inflicting statuses on others, forcing them to cooperate, discovering clues, or even allowing you to temporarily create new tags. However, all moves follow the same pattern. Scoring 10 or more is a great success. Scoring 7 and 9 is a mild success, or a success mixed with a complication. Both 10 plus and 7 to 9 are considered a hit. When your roll does 6 or less, it's a miss. It implies something disadvantageous happened instead of what you tried to do, or that things got a lot more complicated. Sorry, carbonation. This is when the GM will make one of her moves, usually against you. For example, the GM could tell you that your character got into trouble, or tell you to mark a status on your status spectrum cards. And we also have burning a tag. When your character performs a dramatic action that really matters to you, you have the option to burn a tag. Choose one tag relevant to the action you are taking and scratch it out, or mark the burn mark icon next to it. You cannot use it again until you recover using the photo montage or downtime move. Instead of roll plus power for this move, treat the move as though the final result of the roll, including the power, was 10 with a power of 3. No power or weakness tags can be applied to these numbers, but any status spectrum cards you have may increase or decrease them, as in step 4 above. Then follow the move description as normal. So basically, you get an auto win, but you can't use that tag again until you have some downtime.
I like that for the fact that it gives you an option to, do one final burst of energy or final power right before you're gonna have to take a long rest after that.
Mm-hmm.
It's great for these kind of storytelling games where you want some kind of, climactic ending.
Mm-hmm. And we do have a sidebar about how to decide if a tag is relevant, and I'm glad for this because when you're dealing with these kind of storytelling adjacent games, guidance is even more key than it is in a crunch heavy game.
Yeah. And I will speak as person who prefers crunch heavy. This kind of stuff is very nice to have.
Now, after that is statuses. These are essentially debuffs.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Each one is composed of a tag and a tier. The tag determines the nature of it. The tier determines how limiting or debilitating or how enhancing that status is. At tier 5, it's so damaging or intense that your character is out. You can't even attempt to take any actions affected by the status. If a status reaches tier 6, marked as MC, the character may die, enter a coma, permanently add or lose tags or even themes, etc. The GM will decide what happens to your character, and it won't be good. The tag of a status should more or less match its tier and represent how debilitating or enhancing this status is. There cannot be dead 1 or scratched 5 statuses, unless in a bizarre situation where being dead is a very mild nuisance and being scratched is incapacitating. When the tier of a status changes, ergo lessened or worsened, change the tag accordingly to match the new tier. Some statuses are temporary. They affect only the next relevant action and then they're removed. Other statuses are ongoing. They can be removed during scenes using the Change the Game move, if one has the relevant tags to get rid of the status, or during downtime during the photo montage move.
You know, back to the whole dead or scratched thing, ironically, I can think of one movie where both of those situations apply. And that would be The Mummy, because he's dead and it obviously didn't affect him, but a cat scratch will definitely affect him.
Oh, yeah. Oh. And I'm assuming you're talking about the Brendan Fraser mummy, not the original Mummy.
Yes, the Brendan Fraser Mummy, the absolute peak of Mummy, because that was a fucking amazing movie.
Yeah. Oh.
And while we're here on statuses, this is where I have another minor problem with this game. I love the status system. However, the whole concept of it is that, for as they put it here, your lower tiers have lower names. Like, for example, shamed at level 2 becomes humiliated at level 3. I'm sorry, but the constant need to come up with new names for higher tiers bothers me. It should just be shaming 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever. That way it's easier and you don't need to have a thesaurus handy to come up with a new name each time you come up with a new level of status effect.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be breaking out the thesaurus. What do I look like? Adam Setzler?
Exactly.
Chat, don't answer that.
Answer it, chat.
But I think the point is especially made clear because of the status spectrum card that they show. Like, instead of, which first off, I like that it's on a card like this.
Yeah, because then it's temporary.
But moreover, the idea of having to write a new name for it, when at the end of the day, it's, even with the increase in tier, it's not like a whole new set of requirements is put in on it.
Yeah, I mean, it even has a thing here. Taking 4 zapped 1 statuses one after the other. It's like, no. And then it becomes electrocuted 5. No, please. Just electrocuted level 1 to 5. That's easier and much more simple.
Yep.
We don't want to make more work for the game master.
Yeah. And then we have the core moves, which is, a lot of them are exactly what they sound like. Some of them have some guidance actions for them, as well as what you could potentially get out of it from a standard roll, such as what we have here with Investigate. I do appreciate that we have a paragraph's worth of examples for it.
Examples are always key when games are more free-flow like this, more storytelling based. You've got to have them, and I love that they did it.
Yeah. And there's also a sidebar of the rule of minimum 1. Whenever your power determines how much you benefit, clues, tier, or juice, you get from a move, you always get at least 1 benefit, even if you rolled with a power of 0 or less. I appreciate that because that means you don't have successful failures if if the effectiveness is dependent on power. Because sometimes if you're rolling 2d6, sometimes you might luck out and get boxcars. It's not going to happen often.
Or sometimes you may end up like our Sword World games and end up with a lot of Snake Eyes.
Hmm.
Thanks, Roll20.
Yeah. If side note, if Tabletop Mirror is as good as what I am hearing from just the site and I know it's not using that name now, but if it is looking very promising, and depending on how things pan out, that might end up replacing Roll20 for us. Especially when the designer told me he wants you to be able to play Magic the Gathering using using that setup.
You're going to have to tell me more about this after the stream.
I will do that, because I've had some back and forths with him, and I did put it to the test to see if it could handle my system. Because he wants to have that same level of customization without having people have to know HTML, which is the sole reason I'm not doing a Roll20 sheet for my game. But
or you'd have to go CSS for dealing with Foundry.
I really do not feel like staring at code again.
Oh, I do that all the time, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I got out of that for the sake of my mental health, because I felt like I was going insane.
Oh, I'm already well gone past that point, so it's perfect for me.
Yeah, it didn't help that there were times where I felt like I was looking at the same code even after submitting fixes. It's a long story, but the environment that I was in was not a very conducive one.
Luckily, all my coding has been for myself, so a lot more sanity inducing.
Yeah, that and working QA can be a pain. I'll put it that way. But obviously, with a lot of the other actions, they work in that similar approach. So there's not as much of a need to go into each one individually.
I do like the whole change the game one as kind of a catch-all that does, anything where you're doing buffing, debuffing, or just changing the environment. That's a nice one. I love that little addition.
Yeah. And because of the way Juice works, it's a way to have degrees of success.
Yeah, it's a nice little thing that just kind of throws the whole game into a area where you can pull off a lot more than you normally would.
Mm-hmm. But after that, we have downtime, and I will let you take that.
Like in any story, the scenes in your game follow one another in succession, mixing action, drama, investigation. Sometimes, however, a long period of time passes between two scenes, during which your characters could be doing other activities. Example, working on a project or spending time with loved ones. In the City of Mist, the time characters spend doing their own things has consequences, as reflected in the photo montage. Move. When you have some downtime in the story, go around the table with each player taking their pick of how their character spends her downtime. And this is a really cool way to do the between or the bridging scenes between stuff. And I love that they have this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they can give attention to one of your logos themes, so they can, take care of the real world, go pay their taxes or whatever, investigate a case to try and find some more information, explore their mythos, get closer to the mystery, prepare for your next activity by, doing some reconnaissance or something like that, recover from your last activity. If you just happen to burn one of your tags, then you're going to need some downtime just to rest.
Yeah. Plus, with a lot of stories, you have the rising action, climax, and falling action, and with a lot of narrative games, you have the downtime element.
This also works as a great way to segue into, hey, we're quitting it for the night, so we can go on next week, and this is a perfect way to close out for the week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. After that, it talks about the crew, which I mentioned before is kind of the party, but it does something that I honestly would like to see more games do, whether it be narrativist or crunch heavy games, and that is put mechanical weight on the party itself. Um, and the big thing about it is the concept of the crew identity, as well as crews having their own power and weakness tags, essentially shared features that the whole party can take advantage of.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. That way you get your it's not just you, your character, it's hey, we're a group and we work together and this is something that we get to do together.
Hmm. Uh, the other thing is crew attention, which it says represents your crew's growing understanding of each other and how best to work together. They receive attention at the end of each session when the crew weakness tags are used. When your crew theme reaches 3 attention, choose together an improvement for your crew theme and reset the attention to 0. Choose a new power tag, choose a new weakness tag, choose a new identity for the crew, or mark crew evolution. When you reach 5 evolution, add a new logos theme for your crew with one power tag and one weakness tag. This represents a brand new aspect of your operation, such as a new duty or turf, a hideout or base of operations, a vehicle, etc.
Or the fact that the power, I mean, considering we are talking this is mystical, it could even be, hey, maybe they learn to pool their powers in a specific way to do something unique.
And I will note one thing that I will always love in um, RPGs, whether it be video game or tabletop, is when you acquire some kind of base, whether it be the different castle bases you have in the Suikoden series, or the holding that you get in Origins Awakening. Uh, the idea of having this particular spot, this layer, this hideout, that you can keep coming back to and build up is something that's always going to be appealing to me.
Heck, even Path of Exile has that.
Hmm. Uh, as an aside, that's why I found it real funny that D&D Fourth Edition keeps getting the MMO accusation when it never has any holding or base rules.
You know, I never actually touched fourth edition because at the time I was not really flush with cash, so I just kind of avoided it.
Mhm.
That and I
It's
loved my 3.5.
it's understandable. It's one of those things I keep taking the piss out of because a lot of people say that it was playing too much like an MMO, and all that I learn out of that is that a lot of people who say that don't know shit about how MMOs actually work.
You know, one of my former coworkers actually used to say that about it, and I just kind of didn't listen to him. He had
It
his own issues.
it doesn't help that I heard something similar to that in like 2000 of people saying third edition was turning D&D into Diablo.
Hey, that's not bad actually. You know, Diablo back then was actually good.
Well, there were a few crossover modules, so precedent. Except all those crossover modules were pre 3E, so irony.
Yeah, especially considering that there's already been Blizzard and Wizards, or pardon me, TSR
Mhm.
connections before that.
Yeah, but after that, it goes into the whole concept with mythos and logos. I do like that they have this little bar about what mythos is and what logos is. And in addition, there's a kind of title for that denotes what you are, depending on how much mythos and logos you have. Someone with 1 mythos and 3 logos is touched. Someone with 2 and 2 is a borderliner, and someone with 3 and 1 is a legend.
And then there actually is, even though it's not until further on, a one for someone with 4 mythos and 0 logos, which is an avatar.
But after that, we have mythos moves, which are not far removed from logos moves in terms of how they work. In terms of how they work. Uh, but the two big ones are Look Beyond the Mist, which is a way to get clues, and Stop Holding Back.
That one, just the way that they put that out there, I love that one. That it's not, for those who can't see, it's stop, period, holding, period, back. So in other words, it's a command. It's like, don't.
Mm-hmm. And it's mainly a catch-all for when you want to use your abilities in some extreme way, or some way that's related to your ability set, but not necessarily your tags.
Sort of a, hey, I'm going to try and push the limits and see what I can do.
And risk-reward systems is always something I will stand for in my temple.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, like even in novelization, the Wheel of Time series, when they had the possibility of you using the weave too strongly, you could literally burn it right out of you.
Mm-hmm. That, and I've told you before, I like giving my players powerful but unsafe weapons.
That's always fun anyway.
Yeah, like the baseline that I've used for that kind of thing has always been the Noisy Cricket and Men in Black.
Or in the world's most litigious game, the Deck of Many Things.
Mm-hmm. I think one time when I wanted to pull out the Deck of Many Things, I said, "Hey guys, do you like gambling?" They're like, maybe. "Do you like gambling with your life?" And then plop the thing right on the table. I'm like, "What's that?" It's like, "It's the Deck of Many Things." It's like, "Do we have it?" It's like, "Yeah." I'm just gonna leave it right there in the middle of the table, and if someone wants to pull from the deck, they can. And that's all I'm gonna do.
And the first person who pulled is usually the last person who pulls.
Yeah.
And then they learn nobody pulls.
That was the whole idea. You've probably heard Hitchcock's analogy about the bomb under the table.
Oh God, yes.
That was the idea.
Yeah, he had a unique way of putting it. Yeah. I love it.
Putting it right in the middle of the table, doing my best to downplay the whole thing of it's the Deck of Many Things. If I'm not going to tell anybody to draw from it, you can draw from it anytime you want. But whenever you do, no takebacks. But
so how many victims did you get to that?
One.
That's all it takes.
That's all it took was one getting sucked into the void, and that was enough for everybody to not do it. But even when they kept saying, "Can you take that thing off the table?" I said, "Nope, staying there for the rest of the session." Sitting there, taunting you.
Because there are, for those who don't know, there are actually good cards in there. You can come out with some amazing stuff, but you can also come out with everything that you don't want.
And that was the beauty of it. I didn't force anybody to draw from it. They did it on their own. But now after that, there is the Gateway's personal story, which the first thing it brings up is attention, which we've talked about beforehand. And when you mark 3 attention on a theme, you can reset it to 0 and choose one of the following improvements. Choose new power tag, remove a weakness tag, remove 1 crack or fade, or rephrase the theme's identity and mystery within the theme.
And then it goes into the next part where it says, as mentioned, your character must explore her mysteries to keep her mythos themes and maintain her identities to keep her logos themes. But you can make a hard choice where you actually have to act against one of them, where you have to choose which way you have to go. And I love that it's got this in the system.
Mm-hmm. And when you act against one of your identities or mysteries, you have to mark crack or fade on its theme. If you acted for the sake of one of your other identities, you can mark attention to its theme. Which is a good way of getting out of the rock and a hard place situation.
Yeah, it's kind of the whole, Spider-Man's there. He's got to either save the kids or he's got to save his girlfriend. It's that whole hard choice, and that's having that as part of the game. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. For the Trekkies among you, think of the Kobayashi Maru, except you can't cheat.
Sorry, Kirk.
When you mark the third crack or fade box on a theme, you lose it along with all of its tags. So that could mean you've lost your abilities, or you're unwilling to use them, or you just forgot, or for whatever reason can't access them. But it does mean that you have the opportunity to fill that void up with something else down the road.
Yeah, it's like when you lose a Mythos theme, you gain a Logos. When you lose a Logos, you gain a Mythos, which is, you can swap between the two, which is, as I said, where you can go back to being a sleeper if you lose all of your Mythos. But you can also gain them right back.
Yeah. And then there's the whole thing, if you lose your last Logos, you don't get a Mythos theme to replace it. Instead, you become an avatar of your Mythos. When you burn tags as an avatar, you don't scratch them out or mark the burn icon. This state ends when you choose to end it, when someone reminds your character the identity of the last Logos theme in a way that makes you choose it over your Mythos, or any other narrative solution the GM deems appropriate. Your character's avatarhood can end with either you transcending your humanity or being cast down back into ordinary life. When it ends, you can choose one. Your character ascends into your Mythos and is never seen again, or returns an hour later as a new touched character.
Yeah, I love this. The whole concept of, hey, you know what? You're about to lose touch with your humanity, so you're going to a different direction.
Mm-hmm. And I also like the sidebar about Nemesis, which is a way to have lost themes come back to bite you.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe your lost Mythos can manifest itself in somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the denying the beyond, which is the opposite of an avatar.
Becoming a sleeper.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the section known as Beyond the Mist, which, for all intents and purposes, this is the GM section. Starting with figuring out the agenda, which is advice that is pretty self-explanatory. After that, we have cases, with a case you have to decide the background for it. The first step is what the legendary aspect of the case is, what sort of mythos is involved, and what's its agenda. The gateways are the mythoi involved, which are essentially the opposing NPCs and what happened on the streets. So what brought you to this? This might be a bit of a deep cut, but it's the question of who killed Sam Rupert. Only people who got really deep into those FMV point-and-click adventures will get that one.
Or what did Carmen Sandiego steal this time?
Mm-hmm. Funny story about that. I had the board game long before I saw the cartoon or the game show.
I never saw the cartoon or the game show. I used to just play the computer game back when I was in school.
Yeah. I've used that game as part of a short list of counter arguments whenever somebody says that you can't do a good educational game.
Yeah, no kidding. Those were great. Although I still wanted to see one that was based on Dante's Inferno called Where in the Hell is Carmen Sandiego?
But it's just that you can do a good educational game, it just has to actually be a game and not glorified flashcards. Looking at you, Math Blaster.
Oh, God, yeah. That was the one I never did play. Although the other one could be Oregon Trail. Another good one. Although you will die of dysentery.
Yeah, I stand pretty much all of the MECC games from the Apple II era.
Oh, yeah. They had some of the best stuff.
and all of them were games primarily. But then after that, getting back on the rails, the on the way up part, you have a trail of breadcrumbs that the characters are going to be following, writing down the clues and writing down the dangers. And later in the sample set, there's the two cases that use this kind of thing. But after that is the dangers, which is basically the challenge that they're going to have to deal with. The spectrums are the ways to overcome a danger, and the danger moves are exactly what it sounds like. It's the actions that the danger can take. It is the manifestation of the opposition. Referring it to danger is very much an intentional move because of the fact that not every danger is going to involve combat or conflict.
Oh, good. Now I've got that stuck in my head. The whole Lana, Lana, what? Danger zone?
I'd be lying if I said that I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, I've never seen Archer, but I have seen that clip, and it was still funny every time I see it.
Mm-hmm. We do have a set of sample dangers. For example, Proxima, which has the Mythos Will-o'-the-Wisp, and Spectrum's Hurt or Restrain 4 and Threaten 2, as well as a set of moves tied to it. Some of them are custom moves, and some of them have their own statuses and the tier of that status. So it's good.
I do love, though, with the Aware Private Investigator. Seduce 4. That is definitely a noir investigator.
Yeah. Well, would be a great bit of study material that recently came out in early access to use for this kind of setup.
Oh,
Fallen Aces.
Not familiar with that one.
That is yet another banger coming out of New Blood, and I guess I can describe it as doing a first-person immersive sim, very much in the style of a pulp crime fiction.
Dang, I'm looking at it right now. That looks amazing.
Yeah. Only the first episode is out there, but even that first episode is an absolute banger. This, if you're looking for old school first person stuff, just go through New Blood's entire catalog. You will not find them miss once.
The art style is amazing too.
Yeah. Just look through their catalog on Steam. You'll see that they've got nothing but bangers. But after that is the advice on running the game, which is I will admit, a lot of GM sections I skim over because a lot of the advice given is certainly useful for folk, but there's not a whole lot I can really say about it.
Yeah, because it's, in the end, it is your game, so you play it your way.
Yeah. I do like that after that they put in a sample playthrough. This is not far removed from the replays I see coming out of Japan. Just the replays are going to be a lot bigger. I have at one point considered seeing if I could get a bunch of voice actors to voice over one of those replays for Sword World. The only reason I haven't is the sheer amount of content. Like, I think the Train Travelers replay was like 200 pages.
Yikes.
And this one's a few amount of pages too. And after that, we have What the Future Holds, which is basically teasing the kind of stuff in the full book, as well as things like explaining the levels of awareness, a lot of gateway adversaries, a lot of dangers, a section on tag interpretation and controlling power level, and plenty of theme books. and that more or less covers the starter rules for City of Mist. And
It's
at
definitely a
this
good little package.
yeah, at this juncture, just based on what you've seen, what do you think of the rule set for City of Mist?
Overall, it's definitely got a lot going for it. It's a unique take on something, and I love the whole concept of, the hidden world in the modern world. It's always been something I've liked for a theme. That's
Mhm.
one of the reasons why I liked Cult, because it was just so different.
Yeah, and there's also I've sometimes described Cult as Call of Cthulhu, except you can win.
Well, yes and no, because in the end, there's still more, things there to deal with. But yeah, I can see why it would be called that.
Yeah, I half joke, but then again, I've called Unknown Armies cosmic bum fights.
That is, yes, yes, I can't argue with that.
But the big the big thing it's putting aside the whole MC name for GM, which was kind of eh.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that most role playing games always use the term character, and so C is a common part of all short form. NPC, PC.
Yeah, but that I will fully admit that that is very much a us problem.
Yeah, we've been playing way too long.
Mhm. But I will say that the thing that City Invest will live and die on is guidance. This starter set has plenty of that, and the core book certainly does as well.
Yep, and that's exactly what you need for a game like this.
But
That's that's one thing I kind of missed in other free forms like Numenera. There was a lot less guidance and examples in that than I would have liked.
yeah, the I will also note that I even at this early stage, you can kind of see it straining against the Apocalypse engine.
I think it's pretty much broken free even at this stage.
Yeah, what we have right now barely resembles any standard Powered by the Apocalypse game.
Yeah, it doesn't have any of the normal stats that you'd have for Powered by the Apocalypse.
And with a lot of PBTA games, you only have one playbook and a lengthy set of moves and advanced moves.
Yeah,
Here,
this is completely unique.
yeah, you do have the whole Mythos and Logos thing does essentially act as the as the moves sheet, and you do have the basic moves through that. The the emphasis on tags, the foundation was here, and when it became the Mist engine, it focused a lot more on tags and a lot more on power instead of the collection of stats that you have in PBTA. I say collection, but it's really only like four most of the time.
Yeah, it's a neat concept, and in a way, it's your own personal play deck,
Hmm.
especially considering they're doing it among cards.
Yeah, I'd say we did we. I think one of the big things we weren't fond of is renaming status tags as they escalate in severity.
Yeah, come on, please. You're trying to give you want to give the GM less work to do, not more work to do.
Hmm. And when it comes to the way when it comes to the way advancement works, I'd say that is something that, if not carefully done, could result in the same situations that give that guy a reason to make people not want to play paladins. If you catch my drift, know, really
I'm in this picture and I don't want to. I don't like it.
you know how it is. Somebody gets put into one of those fall or die situations.
Yeah, no. When it comes to my paladins, I generally don't do that. But and also the last paladin I played was probably furthest from the paladin than most people would have liked.
Which I can certainly get that. Uh, and even with that, the you do kind of have the framework for how playbooks worked in PBTA, but it's very much separated. Especially just going back and looking at the sample playbooks. Uh, most of them are 2 and 2, and the and you don't really have a whole lot of weakness tags with each. There's one per theme. But the advantage is that you don't have to futz about what the power set is for a given character.
And I do like the fact that the whole thing of the advancement of it a lot of times has to deal with you actually taking on your weakness, and you actually have the option of removing that weakness, which then makes it more difficult to advance.
Mhm.
So it's got its own reward there, where yeah, you can remove that disadvantage, but it also means you're going to be a lot harder to improve it.
Mhm. Now, with that said, I'd say if I was to give a rating when it comes to City of Mist, just based on what I know and what the Mist engine would become, I would say it goes into the camp of strongly recommended.
Yep,
Even with
definitely.
even with the nitpicks I have, they're not enough to bump it down. Uh,
Yeah. I personally love crunch heavy games, and even I say this is a strong recommendation.
and I've made clear that even that I certainly prefer crunch medium is the way I put it, the Goldilocks principle. Uh, but if you have a strong enough theme, I'm willing to go with it. And that's saying something because I'm usually the last guy in the room to jump on what are known as story games. But I jumped on Nibiru because it had a very, very strong concept of essentially weaponizing memories.
And I did the same thing when it came to Numenera, which was the concept of multiple fallen civilizations.
Hmm. Uh, I still need to finish Tides of Numenera.
The whole concept for that game is wonderful. I just absolutely despise the system that it's built on.
Hmm. Uh, I I have a theory on that, but I'll get to that when we go off the air. But with that particular thing said, as always, a sincere thanks to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come all the way to my temple and enjoy the madness that happens around here. And anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. We do these kind of things all the time as it is. And drinking is not mandatory here, but it is encouraged.
Always hydrate.
Yep. Hail hydrate. And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
morning comes a